right. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's actually a great privilege to welcome you all on this very important conversation on what we actually tagged as workforce architecture, whereby we have to think about how can we redesign, the human and the AI execution systems. So let me start by saying clearly that we are no longer in a talent problem situation. We are now in a design problem. And organizations are not just struggling because of maybe people don't exist. They are actually struggling because their workforce systems are not built for the realities of today's world. So the way we hire, the way we develop, the way we deploy, the way we retain talent, is still largely designed for a past that no longer exists. And that is why today's conversation is not just so relevant, but it is actually very urgent. So my name is Michael Lassa, and I'll be moderating this session. I'm actually excited to guide this conversation alongside, an incredible lineup of speakers who are not just practitioners, but people actively shaping workforce systems across different parts of the world. So when we talk about, let me quickly talk about this topic, workforce architecture. I would say that we are talking about how organizations can intentionally design their talent pipelines, their capability systems, their execution structures, and also their competitive advantage. And the truth here is that our workforce is no longer a support function. I saw recent posts, by Mr. Imole, a lot of posts, anyways, caricature posts and different graphical posts, which talks around HR strategy, HR not just being in the support function alone, now in the strategy box, so if it is all about strategy, then of course we need to understand that our strategy must not be poorly designed. So no amount of leadership brilliance can save execution. So we must make sure that our strategy is actually designed, in a very reality way. It should actually showcase the reality of what it is right now. So today, stories from multiple lenses. I could see Lenny on the call with glasses. Shabs is also on the call with glasses. Imole is on the call. So those lenses are going to be very, very sharp. Oh, sorry, Olawale too. Mind me, I don't have, mind me, I don't have mine here, and perfect. Don't worry. Yeah, both of the same color, so don't worry. So for us, we want to sharpen our lenses into global talent acquisition, people development, HR governance, transformation execution, and talent matching systems. And this is actually going to be very practical, deeply insightful session. And I want to learn, from all these legendaries that we have here. I call some goddesses, some goddess, God or what have you. But you understand what I'm trying to say. So, for me to introduce every one of us on this call, like I said, my name is Mike Alassa, and I would like to introduce the founder of the Hopeworks Collective Limited. That should be Olajumoke Leniola Akindolere, if I'm correct. I hope I didn't murder that name. So we'd just like to hear from you briefly. Introduce yourself and tell us briefly about what you understand about this topic we are about to dissect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. I hope I'm audible. I I hope so.
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so my name is Olajumoke Olashemileniola Kindolire, and founder the Hopeworks Collective at the moment. Prior to that, I've done a bit of work in some organizations that you may know, Philips Consulting, ARM Pensions, Total Energies, and Coca-Cola as well. And so yeah, been around a little bit. What do we do at Hopeworks Collective? We partner with leaders and impact focused organizations, and the plan is to strengthen their communication, convene, and then help build capability. So we design speaking platforms, learning experiences, presentation coaching, cultural interventions, anything that helps people and teams to perform with clarity, with confidence, and with purpose. That's what we do. For the topic, I mean, people have been saying the future of work for a long time, but the future that we saw then is now. And so, what are we going to do about it? So, I think the most important shift, or should I say, movement that we should consider here as organizations we can no longer treat AI as just another productivity tool that we're adding to our kitty. It is changing how work is allocated, how work is designed, how organizations are designed, and how decisions are made. And so, what value do humans versus AI intelligence or artificial intelligence in terms of itself as a system and as agents that work within our organization? So, again, just understanding enterprise value from an intelligence point of view, whether it's artificial intelligence or human intelligence. Thank you.
Fantastic. You see, when the legend is actually speaking, you actually grab a lot of nuggets from that. But I know we still get more nuggets, when we actually deep dive. They say deep dive is actually AI terminology, but anyways, it's rubbing off on us. I'm going to use it. We're talking about AI today, so I'll move to the next speaker, and that's people project consultant Habiodun Shabiolegbe, if I'm correct.
Yes, my name is Abiodun Shabiolebe. Thanks for having me, on this call. Yeah, what I have to say about myself, I've been in HR space over the last 17 to 18 years, if not more. Um, Practice in Nigeria. Coincidentally, I'm also ex-Philips Consulting, just like Jumoke. Worked in a few other places in Nigeria. Started initially at HPSN, but now my practice is, across borders. I work with AXA UK as people projects consultant, and I work in the transformation, office. Being involved in quite a number of lifting and shifting of people from project operating model to product operating model most recently, and the experiences have been around the legal frameworks and how easy or how difficult it is to actually implement some of these artificial intelligence initiatives. For us, in the UK, I'll speak more of the environment rather than where I work, because I don't have an approval to speak for AXA. It's more about the legal requirements that have to deal with some of these implementations. And I think oftentimes what happens is that we tend to shift the responsibility for the implementation of AI or any technology related initiative in HR to IT and procurement, and we are not really involved in it. For us here, it's also about the employment law and what you can actually do and what you cannot do. You also have to pass through the unions. So those are some of the bottlenecks that we're experiencing. So it's more for me beyond the AI in itself, but how are these AI programs, designed in such a way that you can, cross over those bottlenecks that we have. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for that brief intro, Mr. Abiodun. I'll move on to Mr. Imole. Please introduce yourself to us and briefly about what we're about to dissect today.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we
All right.
can hear you.
It's good to be here. My name is Imole. Imole Ayo Ashobo. Currently, how would I describe myself? I'm just passionate about HR. HR is what I do, what I've done for over 16 years now, and I continue to do. I've had opportunity to work in some very great companies like Jumoke. I worked at Coca-Cola, but Coca-Cola Canada. I was regional HR manager here. And I also lead Luminous Consultants. A key part of what we do is training and capability development. And interestingly, I have a day job. I work as a director of HR and labor relations with Ambrose University, one of the universities here in Canada, in Alberta. And I lead communities where we just create platforms to enable people move forward in the world of HR. This topic is quite interesting. I think for me the core shift here is that for years, HR has been designed around people, right? Then we move to designing around roles, right? And but now the real work is not designing around people or roles, it's designing around execution, right? I think for me that's what we call workforce architecture, right? How do you design work? And you don't design it around people because of the nature of roles and work and the shifting world we are in. It's a shifting. So you design it around execution. What do we want to achieve? For me, again, HR, why are we doing HR? What is this about? HR at the core is putting structural systems and framework in place so that the organization will win in the marketplace. So whatever we are designing, whatever we're doing must tie to one critical goal: our organization win in the marketplace. So you have to, I look at it this way: the future of work is not simply about adding AI to the workplace. AI is an enabler, right? AI is a tool. We must not think it beyond that. However, it's moving in a fast pace. For me, I think it's about redesigning the workplace so that human intelligence and artificial intelligence can produce better outcomes together. Right? That's the core of what we do, which you don't need to overthink it. Right? Human intelligence, artificial intelligence, they should be that enablement should help us produce better results for our systems, for our organization, for what we represent. Right? And so I'll say the next competitive advantage will not belong to organizations who have the most people or the best technology. The next transformational organization will be organizations that know how to design work intelligently, who know how to harness the skills and the competencies of their people, so that this is one phrase that is always on my mind. So that what? Why are we doing all of this? So that we win in the marketplace. And you can only win in the marketplace when you architect properly, when you place people properly, when you assess properly, when you align properly. So workforce is not just, it's not just about head count and all of that. It's about building this architecture you are talking about in a way where we are not fitting square pegs and round holes, but of course we're even designing our holes to the way that they respond so solidly to the marketplace, right? And that you have the right people because you have designed properly, you have the right people fitting in those roles. Inevitably, you're going to win. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wow. There's a lot we're
Mm.
still expecting from Imole. Thank you so much for that insight. I know you actually just pinch yourself to, just to, stop yourself because I know that you're so loaded and there's a lot you actually want to share with us. But anyways, I'm going to move over to Ola Blaze.
Thank you. I came to learn here as well, right? The divergence and diversity of thought and thinking makes the two
Yeah,
co-create. So I'm learning from all of you, all my colleagues here. That's the whole idea.
yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move over to Ola Blaze. Please introduce yourself to us. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Hello, good
Thank you.
afternoon, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, my name
Sorry.
is Ola Blaze, and I've been in the human resource space for the last 10 years. Majorly, over the last 6 years, I've been working with distributor teams and majorly in the fintech industries. So I've had to pioneer people departments a number of times over, and especially around distributed team base. So this topic is, I would say, likely instrumental to managing such team bases, and especially because we've had the term, "Oh, AI will take people's jobs," and not so much as those that have refused to integrate the use of artificial intelligence into their day to day. So, like it's been said before me, it's just ensuring or sharing my viewpoints on how to collaborate with the resources we have from artificial intelligence while still indulging the human bit as well, not making one supersede the other, right? In as much as artificial intelligence is efficient, we still have like areas where you can't totally rule out human input. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ola Blaze, for that intro as well. Quite insightful. And I'm also going to move over to the man in the middle, but maybe down below. He's always in white, and I could see red here and black here. Please introduce yourself to us. You already know yourself. I won't mention your name.
Michael. All right. Thank you for having me here. Hi, everyone out there. My name is Olawale Odunlami, and I've been in talent acquisition almost all my career. I mean, this is the 13th, 14th year of doing this, and I currently work in the tech industry, where I manage the talent acquisition function across our sites. And the conversation we are having here today, is not just about um, what AI can do for us, right? It is about what we can do with AI, right? And I love what Imole said. He said, so that what? Okay, we need to be able to integrate AI to what we do, okay, so that we can win with AI. Okay, I mean, 2 years ago, we're talking about simply using AI to write emails. Okay, talking about using AI to correct our grammar, right? But today, we're talking about agentic AI, okay, that can do things autonomously. Okay, so I mean, how do we use these AI agents that can do things autonomously with human in the loop? All right, which I believe it is very critical to have a responsible AI. You need to have human orchestrators in that flow. All right, so how do we win with AI? How do we design the the workspace today, all right, with AI that is there? Because it's not just going to be about human, it's going to be human plus AI, okay, at the execution level, which is critical to what we're going to talk about today. So, yeah, here to learn, here to contribute, and looking forward to this session. Thank you, Michael.
Fantastic. Thank you very much as well for that insight, And I like the fact that you actually pinch from what Imole said earlier about of course, we must win. Human intelligence must always win, even though we have agentic intelligence. And very soon we'll be talking about synthetic intelligence, maybe collective intelligence. Imole is looking at me. What is Michael saying?
You are next. You are next level. That's why we are following you. Next level.
Yeah. Elon Musk is already doing synthetic. Even I think China, all these AI robots that can now dance, that can do.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's more like synthetic intelligence. Anyways, but there's a higher level, to all those things. So quickly, I would just like to talk to all our viewers on LinkedIn and possibly on YouTube. And of course, one of the reasons why we want this to be streamed, live, and of course to be recorded is because we know that some persons might not be available to join now, but it can be more like a library for most of these persons. It can be recorded and they can revisit it over and over again because what we want to discuss here is actually very sensitive, very important, and timely. So I encourage every participant across the globe. If you have questions, please you can drop your questions possibly on the LinkedIn live stream page and possibly on YouTube as well. We can pick up your questions. And of course, we have a lot of fantastic speakers here who are definitely going to respond to you. So let's go to the core of this conversation. We've spent 20 minutes already, introduction, so time is fast spent. So I'll actually bring in our first speaker, and our first speaker here is actually rolling the drum. Brrr, bum, bum, bum. We'll pick. Should I do? Let me pick Imole. So Imole. So this is how it's going to flow from Imole to Olawale, over to Jumoke, Ola Jumoke, over to Abiodun, then over to Olablis. I hope we like it that way. And if you don't like it that way, don't worry, I can. So, Imole, you've said a lot already from your introduction. And my first question to you, and we really want to, hear from you and understand deeply about uh, this question. So, if For you, you operate at the intersection of employment law, labor relations. I've seen you converse a lot around labor relations. Of course, I think you have a well-designed certification in labor relations as well. So many persons, please, I'm just tagging that. There's a well-certified labor relations certificate that Imole is actually. Am I correct, Imole? I just want to
Yes,
speak about that
it's
quickly.
one of the courses we deliver at Luminous Consulting. Labor relations in Canada. We've trained over 70
In
people in
Canada.
Canada. Yes, it's a certificates program.
All right. Okay. So please, after this call, just same after. Good. So back to you, Imole. So you operate at the intersection of employment law, labor relations, and of course institutional governance. So when AI systems begin executing workforce decisions,
Hmm.
screening, allocating, evaluating, and even recommending. What is the first employment law principle? And are organizations evenly, are they actually legally ready? Are they prepared, for the liability that this creates? Thank you.
Hmm. That's a very interesting question, and I'm going to respond carefully to that question because organizations are at different levels when it comes to this. You must recognize that maturity level in organization differs, right? So you have organizations using it at different levels, using it for different, eliciting the capability at different levels. There are a few laws. There are a few laws in Canada, for instance, that protect or that requires a level of disclosure, right? If you are using AI to shortlist, or if you are using AI to do certain things, there are a few things. So, but I think how, how I'm going to put it is, you want me to explain from a employment law angle, correct? Now, um employment law has, so to my understanding, employment law, the ESA, what we call employment standards here in Canada, as does not yet have anything very specific designed for AI, use of AI. However, we have PIPEDA, right? Or PIPA, depends on the province you are. And fundamentally, that really just talks about how information is being governed, right? How information is used, privacy around information, and all of that. So that's the first thing. But I'll start by saying, sorry, I'm just trying to put my thought. I'll start by saying, first and foremost, employment law is built on decision makers, on human decision makers, not AI. Most employment law framework in Canada assume that a person made the decision, a person can explain the decision, and that person is accountable for the decision. Do you get what I'm saying? So once AI enters into execution, that clarity starts to break. So if AI system screens candidates and recommends discipline or flag performance, who owns the decision? Who made the decision? The system, the law is not going to think about it, or is not going to look at it from an AI angle. Who made the decision? Is it the HR manager? Is it the vendor? Is it an algorithm? So if you cannot clearly assign accountability, you are exposed. Does that make sense to you? That's the first critical thing we need to understand. Then you need to, for instance, something happened in with one of the airlines here. I'll not mention the airlines. And somebody had a bereavement issue, and they went online, they chatted with their chatbot. And when they chatted with chatbot, their chatbot said yes to their question. And they made a decision based on that. And by the time they wanted a refund, they said no, they can't refund because their chatbot made a mistake. The judge slammed them $200,000. Right? What do you mean that your chatbot made a mistake? And I even wondered who enabled that decision internally. Why didn't they settle? Anyway, so I just use that as an example. The second principle here is this: the principle under what we call procedural fairness. We have a concept here called procedural fairness. In employment law in Canada, especially think about unionized environments, fairness is not optional. So employees have the right to understand the decision, they have the right to respond to the decision and challenge the decision. my people, if AI is involved, can the employee understand how the decision was made? Can the organizations explain clearly, right? So you need to think about it from this lens. So, the point is, a decision cannot, a decision that you cannot define cannot be defended. Therefore, organizations need to think about it from that lens, Then you have a big part of bias and discrimination, right? That risk is very high. It will not decrease. So the common assumption is AI reduces bias, but there's been some cases where, it's not absolutely true. This is partially true. So AI can scale business faster. I mean, AI can scale bias faster. It can, the data is biased. If the data is biased, if the model is poorly designed, it will be biased. If the output is audited or is not audited properly, it will be biased. So that's another critical thing when you're looking at the intersection of law, employment law, and all of that. So AI does not remove bias. It actually industrialize what is left unchecked. That's how I'm going to put it, right? So organizations that need to look at it from that lens as well. If we leave this in our check, what's the exposure, what's the risk? And I'll probably just also end by the collective agreement. So you talked about unionized environment. The collective agreement is not built. I just finished a major negotiation. It's not built around AI negotiation or AI execution. That's not what it is. It's built around people. It's built around defined roles. It's built around clear processes, sound judgments, progressive discipline is built around that. And that's why I said from the onset that AI is an enabler. If any business organization is bringing AI, you have to be able to answer these questions. Who defines what? Who protects what? What are the risks? What are the exposure? Within the unionized environment, AI is disrupting because certain jobs are going or they are being restructured or recalibrated, But the truth about it is this: most organizations are not legally ready. I can say that to you. They're not legally ready yet, right? Most organizations are still at the stage where they're experimenting. We still had this meeting this week, we are testing efficiencies. They are exploring automations, which is fine. And they are seeing what are the guardrails, if your organizations have a governance framework in place, which is good, if you have accountability models, if you have some form of audit trail, and they are talking about it, but at the end of the day, organizations are not just designing AI into work, they are introducing AI from a legal risk angle, right? There's a legal risk if you do not embed solid accountability within it, fairness, or a solid governance system. We are seeing that this is exposing organizations. I don't know if I'm able to communicate. I was able to communicate some critical thoughts on what is happening here at those intercessions, but it's still an ongoing exposition here in what I see around me. Thank you.
Wow, that's actually very deep. Thank you so much for sharing that insight, Imole. And you said a lot because from what I can pick here, truthfully, and based on what you've shared with us this morning over there at Canada, and of course, evening over here in Nigeria, and afternoon possibly in other regions, you mentioned something around most companies are actual organizations are not legally ready, and it's actually um, buttresses the point around accountability, solid accountability, governance system, of course, strong governance system. And you also mentioned about procedural fairness, which, of course, it's something that must be looked into. There's something you mentioned about bias, and that is actually very scary. Yeah, scary a bit because for you to have highlighted that AI can actually scale bias further, we have to be careful. Yes, above all, humans are actually the center of all these things. And of course, we are the ones that will still be the decision maker. We are the ones that are actually going to, factor in what AI should do and not do in terms of what is expected, based on the results. But if you should look at that bias system, that bias part that you mentioned, we have to be very, very intentional. we have to be very, very careful because all these things still boils down to the governance system, the governance system or structure of the organization, because transparency is very key. What you do and what you do with information, AI information, data information, also goes a very long way. So if we allow bias to set in, it's actually going to affect a lot of things, around decision making, around a lot of things that can actually expose the organization legally. And you mentioned something as well, which I will take it as actually a punch note. You said decisions cannot be defended, decisions cannot be, when decisions are not defined, definitely it cannot be defended. Um, there was a time I was working on cloud AI. I was trying to experiment on the cloud code because I want to be like Olablaze. She does a lot of things around systems and what have you. She has done a lot of. I think she has built a software. So I too was trying to test run, and the backend was asking me a lot of access. Okay, grant this access, don't grant this access. Like it's a switch button, and I realized that some of those access are very, very sensitive. Having access to my personal Gmail, having access to my folders, having access to my account, my financial account, because maybe my AI agent may want to, purchase something on my behalf and what have you. Very, very scary, very, very sensitive. So at first, I clicked it on, I switched it off. I was like, am I actually ready? Because if anything if anything goes wrong, I'll be accountable for it. Like recently I saw someone online, and he's actually a white guy, and the guy was complaining bitterly that he has actually been defrauded because they hacked into his account. Maybe his ATM was actually compromised. So all those things, you have to be ready. You have, in terms of accountability, you must be ready. Legally too, you must be ready, because if all those things, is organization we are talking about. Information is very, very important. Data privacy and all these things are also very important. What if this AI leaks out the information? What if the chatbot you built, just like the one you shared with us about the airport? So it's actually a very, very fantastic response you've given to us. And we organizations, we need to start positioning ourselves, legally. We have to be legally ready. And if you're legally ready, you must understand the principles that underlies that. Thank you very much, Imole, for that feedback. I would like to move on to the next speaker, and that's actually Mr. Lawale. So, Mr. Olawale, you work in a technology service industry that sells capability, in that very space. Agentic intelligence is actually developing fast. Let me even say fastest. And you mentioned something about agentic intelligence. So, this my question should not catch you unawares. So, what's the most uncomfortable question I can ask you, about this? So, let me say, does the industry global talent acquisition, practice reflect the future that they sell, or are you using the 2015 hiring logic inside this 2026 technology industry? Thank you. Don't mind my question.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think Imole laid a very strong foundation around, legality, bias, generally talking about responsible AI, right? And I'm going to pick from there and go to answer the question you've asked. Now, classically, okay, the way we solve problems in an organization is by adding boxes to the organization chart, right? For instance, we need more sales. Solution, hire, for instance, 3 more salespersons, right? That's what we used to do classically. Now, with the technologies available to us in this age, right? The question we are asking, or workforce architecture is asking, is what is the execution layer of this task? Okay, and let me break it down with this scenario. If 60% of sales rep work is data scraping and outreach. Okay, 60% of what a sales rep would do. Remember, I was saying we need more sales. Solution hire three sales guys in this age. Now, if 60% of the job is scrape data from the internet, do outreach, okay, this has become an AI execution task in itself. Okay. Now, I'm going to address a couple of things that Imole mentioned earlier. Now, because personal AI, for instance, Clay, Cognism, Artisan, these different AI tools, to mention a few, can today autonomously handle prospecting, follow-ups, and booking of meetings, right? Now, that's 60% of the job. Now, the remaining 40% sit at a very high level negotiation, okay, which is, of course, a human execution task. So we're looking at the two, okay? What we're saying in this discourse is that we're not just hiring a person, we are designing an hybrid system, okay? And when you design an hybrid system, you need to also build with it the legal framework that comes. Okay. And what that does, it helps you, resolve issues like what happened to Eightfold. I'm sure you guys heard the story. What happened to Workday. These are the things you are able to cover if you design and build the systems that follow it. I mean, including the legal aspect of it. Now, to answer your question more directly, it is an uncomfortable truth, but in most global enterprises, even the tech ones today, TA is like a shoemaker's child who goes barefoot. Okay, if I'm being honest, the industry is still largely trapped in the classical mindset. We're still obsessed with, using head counts as a metric of success, right? And most organizations today are trying hard to break free from that. Okay. In this industry, they're trying hard, to break free. We're seeing people implementing, HB, implementing Eightfold, and all of that, which means we're trying to move away from just talent acquisition to a bit of capability orchestration. We are not there yet. We are not there yet. Okay. And what this means is we're not just asking who do we hire. Okay. We are asking how should this work be done. Okay, and where I work, what we're currently doing is, we are building systems to implement this, from skill taxonomy, to AI capability for people, right? Just to move us away from, the classical mindset, to this 2025 AI capability that we need to be functioning in. Thank you. Let me just stop there because we just
Okay,
keep talking.
I would have loved to dissect further the way you mentioned the skill taxonomy and all those stuff. So it means, well, you is it that the agentic AI are being trained, to have all this information? Because when you mention, of course, for me now, one of the things I can pick from what you shared is hybrid, right? Is now an hybrid system. So gone are the days whereby it's just majorly humans, but now we are talking about human and AI. There was a conference I recently, I think I contributed recently, not business day, but I can't remember. And was I think one of the things I mentioned was around AI, whereby AI can actually fire an employee, based on data, based on data that has collected over time, and it's because it was trained to do that, because it has actually, um, consolidated a lot of information, based on performance metrics, and even this performance has actually been redefined as well. So gone are the days where talking about JD. Now it's actually going to be more of capability documents and what have you. So it's actually a hybrid system that will be going on, forward in most organizations. And of course, agentic systems are really doing a massive impact when it comes to execution. So yeah, human will be executing, AI too will be executing. But I wasn't so clear in that space, when you spoke around. So what are those things that, of course, you mentioned that there are some functions that the agentic AI will actually take good care of, like the salesperson that you have, the sales category you used, for example. So what are those kind of things that the agentic intelligence is actually going to take over? And what are those aspects of human that, intelligence from the human, decision making from the human side is actually going to still stay? So I just need a little clarity in that space.
Okay. I'll add some things to it. Now, I'm not. I don't have authorization to speak for my organization here, so
Okay.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about. So what we're doing, when we say skill taxonomy, is building a database of the skill set of your employees, right? In summary, okay. And when you do that, and employees consistently update that database, you give your AI access to it. All right. When you need a task to be filled, or a role, for instance, to be filled, the first thing you want to do is not to put together a JD and put it out there to look for people. All right. You want to, the AI can actually give you, somewhere to say, oh, we have two, three, four people that have the skills that can do this. Okay. And what that does for you is, instead of going to hire an additional person, okay, you have the capacity in house already. Okay, probably that is not even being tapped into at the moment, that you can just, layer on top of somebody. Somebody that is in your organization right now. All right. So you have that database, you give your AI access to it, let it, train your database with, your AI with that database. When you have need of what you need, what to hire for, remember, you have implemented AI across all your functions. Okay, the AI tells you, no, you don't need to go look outside. From what you have internally, you have these skills. So just layer it on top of it, and then you go from there. So that's the summary of what I was just trying to explain. Not wanting to go into details because of
Okay, corporate rights, so that they will not come for me, right? Legally. Yeah, because I'm not legally ready for that. So let's go straight to the next one.
I want to have an office to resume to on Monday.
All right, okay, so over to you, Olajumoke. So for you, this is my question.
It's like it's frozen.
Yeah,
You
it's
are
Yeah.
frozen.
next and
Michael,
seasoned
Michael, we
sorry,
lost
I
you
didn't
for
get the
it.
beginning of
development
the
consultant.
question.
We lost you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can now.
Everything changed. Network, spam. Okay, so I'm going to ask the question again. So, Olajumoke, you are an experienced and seasoned people development consultant, and I've known you for years,
I think the internet
Yeah.
just loves me.
in that space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's one
internet
of
is
the
Mhm.
crappy.
Oh, yes.
We hear you.
Oh, you can hear
We can hear
me.
you.
Don't worry. I
Mhm.
think I'll pass Olajumoke. I'll move to possibly maybe Abiodun because it seems Olajumoke is doing something with my internet.
But I'm just
Okay,
We
here
can,
let me
waiting
try.
on
we
the
can
question.
hear you. We can
Let me
hear
try
you.
one more time. Just one
Yeah.
more time. Last chance. One more time. So Olajumoke,
You can email
Oh
me
wow.
this question because it feels
you
like
are an experienced
Or you
and
can put it in the chat
PDC. That's
box.
people development
I'm telling
consultant.
you so I can respond.
You can put it in the chat box.
Maybe put it in the chat box.
Oh, okay. This is serious. This is serious.
Because everybody else
Okay,
can
I'll be
hear me.
fascinated.
We're all having a good time over here, and then your internet is
Okay.
going the other way.
Okay, I'll be very
It's
fast now. But
agentic
you can hear me now,
intelligence.
right? But you can hear me now, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we
Yes.
You
can
can
hear
hear me
you.
right? Uh-huh. So yeah, you've
Loud
worked
and
with
clear.
large organizations. You've worked with large organizations on transformation mandates, right? And based on your experience, because you are a seasoned people development consultant, what is actually the state of workforce readiness from your experience, from the way you've actually, handled most of these mandates? What's the actual state of workforce readiness for agentic intelligence? And how wide is the gap between what those organizations are telling their boards and what
Right.
you find operationally?
Mm.
Ah,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Finally, I get a question. Uh,
That's a perfect.
hello, everyone, again, and it's good to just be here. Thank you, Michael, for the opportunity and the amazing people on the call. Okay, so I'll go straight to it. And if I'm going to answer you honestly, readiness is being overstated in a lot of organizations, and that's the truth. And here's why. At leadership level, we like a lot of interesting language. We say things like, the strength of the innovation, productivity, transformation, experimentation. We use all these beautiful big words. And when you now like really drill down to what is this really about? What are you talking about? And then you find that there's a lot of fragmented ownership. And
Mm,
then, like Olawale had mentioned, Imoli had also alluded to, who is accountable for the decisions that are being made, right? And then again, what is the workflow design? How have we decided which percentage of our work is going to be carried out by agents, which part will be carried out by humans? Most times when we look at workforce design and workforce planning, all you see is the human side. So we need to, again, we've not embraced the fact that there are currently two types of intelligence. And I know that because my HR people are probably on the call, some will come for me after this conversation. But the truth is HR still HR? Or does HR need to evolve into intelligence management, intelligence resource management? Meaning we're not just managing humans, we're managing artificial intelligence as well, right? And then when we talk about data discipline is a big issue in many organizations and even many countries. So Imole had mentioned something about bias, and it's a big deal because most of the large language models that we use are trained on foreign data. So
true.
of course there will be bias,
True.
right? So how much data do we even have as a continent? Then we drill it down to the different organizations. So data discipline, we need to up our game, right? There's limited manager capability. So what we're doing right now is we have an organization, we have a recipe for that organization, then everybody's doing AI. Let's throw in some AI tools, right? But are we even ready for these AI tools? That's why you have so much data breaches, leaks here and there. Because again, what we need to realize is that regulation will always catch up with innovation. Innovation happens first, then regulation. So are we ready when it comes to manager capability, compliance capability, labor laws even ready to accommodate what is going to start to happen or what has already started happening in different organizations? And then also there's very little clarity, like I said, on which work should remain human, which one should be, agentic, which one should we automate instead of being autonomous. Many things to deal with. But when you hear managers in boardrooms, the language is like, yes, we are, we're ticking off boxes, we're doing what we need to do. But to be honest, I don't think many organizations are ready because they're not ready to do the work of transformation that it takes. So the gap is real and it's wider than many leaders want to admit.
Mm,
So a lot of organizations, like I said, have bought AI capacity faster than they are able to absorb, and they've not redesigned execution around it. So what happens is we are running 2026 AI technology on 2016 management logic. That cannot work because I again, I'm a faith-based person. So it's new wine in old skin, right? It's going to cause trouble.
It
So
is causing
does a
trouble.
gap to answer your question
Yeah.
directly, to is there a gap? Yes. How wide is the gap? A lot wider than we think. So if we're ready to do the work, first step is not going straight into redesigning. First step is an audit. Where are we? An honest evaluation of where we are, where we want to be, and then how do we systematically, intentionally close that gap? Because if not, we're all just going to jump on the adoption train, cause more problems, and then when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it, right? So, not to take too much of our time, I'm just saying that a lot of organizations are not ready, and there is a gap. It's real and it's very wide. Thank you.
Well, that's also very profound. I saw Imole shaking his head and, of course, raising some thumbs up. Oh, you want to say something? You want to drop something in that regard
Yes,
as
so
well?
I so much agree with Olajumoke, and it's so nuanced that I mean I love our illustration. We're still using pouring old wine in a new wine skin, you know, and the reality is this that this challenge goes a lot to HR professionals because we have to be able to have a lens for this conversation. We have a lens, but we have to be able to drill down. She asked the question: HR should HR manage, what should HR be managing in this whole thing, right? HR should not manage AI or humans separately. I think HR must design a system where both can perform.
Right.
And if you have to design a system where most perform, you must be able to ask the critical questions she's asking. But how many HR professionals are real at that table where how we win in the marketplace is being discussed? Because the IT director wants to bring in his capabilities coming from his office, right? The salesman, our guy here who's sales inclined, he wants to optimize and we want to make more money. But the truth about it is this: the future of HR for me is not people management, it's intelligence management, intelligent orchestration, right? The culture
Right.
must be right. It's not just about the system. The framework must be awesome. The old model of HR is this: people, roles, and performance. The new one is you have to think about work, you have to think about intelligence, you have to think about outcome. So we're not a support function again, but I can tell you for a fact a lot of HR are still functioning as a support function. Therefore, this design that we're doing will soon get to a place where it will hit a crescendo, it will hit a point, and it will begin to go down. The sloping going down will be heavy because the reality of the gap will be there. How many organizations are doing a true audit and are scaling and are putting frameworks and are putting solid structures in place to mitigate that gap that the audit has found? You know, there are two questions there. How many? Right, and this is a challenge we have to challenge our HR buddies, right? To say, hey,
Right.
it is awesome, these capabilities are awesome, but are you truly ready from all dimensions? You don't need to be 100% ready before you dive into it. But what will break your organization? You have to ask that question. What capabilities do we need to develop? What are the dangers embedded in this system? If and how do we fix it, right? Fast before we get to that place where we just realize we just wasted $10 billion for nothing, or $100 million, whatever that looks like. But I mean, I just need to drop that. Thank you, Jimmy.
Wow, that's really deep. Thank you so much, Olajumoke, for that uh, insightful contribution. And I picked a lot from it, but I'm just trying to check time. You know, we need to fast track this conversation. But let me just quickly recap. You mentioned um, aspects of data discipline, you know, actually very, very Olawale also highlighted. We also, and Olawale, we also need to start looking into how can even HR itself be redesigned or reevaluated or let me say re-evolved into, into the aspect of intelligence resource management. And you mentioned something as well, which is the aspects of realizing that most organizations, they are actually very quick to, say, yeah, all these big grammars when it comes to AI technology and what have you. But when it comes to the real root source of, okay, are they really ready? Are they capable? You discover that there's a very, very huge gap within that space. And Imole has also shared a lot, tentatively around that space. So for most of these organizations, especially for HR professionals, they need to firstly audit, they need to have an honest evaluation. Then they need to intentionally close that gap, have solid structure that can actually close that gap, and so that they can actually migrate from just being a support system into a well data driven system. So that is actually top notch, and of course, I appreciate that feedback. I'll move to I'll move to Shabs, aka Shabs. I don't maybe you prefer the alias. Do you prefer the alias as Shabs or
Sharps
Abiodun?
is fine. I've not left it
Shabs.
since.
All right. Okay. So, from your experience, I know you've worked with different organizations, consulting space, banking space, different space, and even the current one that you are currently in right now in the UK. But um, I would like to ask you this question because you've worked across different multiple regulatory regimes, right? So when you design people projects, in most environments, maybe in the UK, for example, or maybe in Nigeria or in Ghana or Kenya, because you oversee most of these countries as well. So when you design a people project in this environment, and the answer involves you introducing agentic systems into the execution chain. What is actually the regulatory and the compliance conversation that has to happen, before anything else? And how far behind that conversation are most organization people functions right now? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And it's been very insightful listening to those that spoke earlier. I don't know if there's an hashtag for this event. Actually wrote it down. If there is, from what Jumoke said, regulation will catch up with innovation. I think that was profound for me. And I mean, it got me thinking. And I mean, the second part of the question you just answered, sorry, you just asked now was actually answered by, Jumoke. And most of the first, part of the question that you also asked now was also answered by Imole. So I'm going to be saying almost the same thing, but, I'll be in a different way and approach. Again, also bringing it home, to where I practice at the moment. And I believe that, because we may have similar environment, that's Imole and I, we may just be, saying some things that are the same. I think for me, before the conversation starts, the first thing to think about, just as Imole said, is accountability, which is very critical. We're in an environment where the employment law does not forgive. And that's the honest truth.
Mm.
You also need to also understand that culture is also, plays a big part in all of what we're talking about. I used to say to people, here within the health space, there's a law called, if I remember very well, the principle of Coden or cadence or something like that, which means that you have to really, review or say everything that happens, within the space where you work. And if you get on the train, for instance, you hear see it, say it, sort it. If you get to work, you hear see it, say it, sort it. Those are the kind of things that, builds the culture, around this environment. So regulation is very, very key and important. And like Imole said, I'm just going to be saying it in a different way. The tribunal will not try your AI tool. The tribunal is going to try your
Absolutely.
organization. Okay, so the question is, who is accountable for this process? Who is accountable for the decisions that are taken by this process? And this is where meaningful human involvement is very critical. In consultation, when you're speaking with union, we talk about meaningful consultation, which means that whoever you're having, dialogue with or whatever, at some point needs to agree. So with AI, there has to be meaningful human, involvement in the process. And some of the laws that we've had around recently have actually even backed all of this up. So AI will not go to the tribunal for you. It's the employer. So the employer needs to first of all start thinking about accountability and ensure that someone is responsible for it. For my organization, we have what we call the design authority, which some other organizations also call the decision authority. They are the ones that look at the design and the process that is involved in whatever it is that you're trying to build into an AI system, and how you ensure that that human element is not completely taken away in such a way that the organization is protected. Like I said earlier, the tribunal does not, or the employment law does not forgive. Imole also talked about bias. That's also one of the things you need to start thinking about, because it can cause you a great deal of legal exposure as an organization. In the UK, we talk about 9 protected characteristics, and this flows from the employment process, which is the employment experience that candidates have up until when they have to leave the organization. So you talk about employment experience, you talk about you talk about candidate experience, you talk about the employment experience when they are in, and also you look at the exit experience when they are leaving. So you need to be sure that these 9 protected characteristics, such as race, sex, gender, and what have you, are not things that can cause you legal issues when you're introducing your HR. Again, don't forget, you are the one that's responsible for whatever it is. You're not the AI system. You need to have auditable evidences. So those are the things that you need to start thinking about when you're thinking about having regulatory framework for whatever tool that you are designing. You need to be able to think early enough about auditable evidences that you can use, to protect yourself as an organization. And you need to also consider your jurisdiction. I know that at some point I was head of HR for Omatech in Nigeria. We got away with so many things. Pension, we got away with this, that. At some point we explored Ghana, and when we started in Ghana, any slight delay, to remitting people's pensions, we got notice from what's it called, from SNIT. We got notice from their IRS and all of that. So you need to consider your jurisdictions when you are doing some of, coming up with some of these initiatives. Again, you need to also consider the fact that once you own it, you own it. Most times we buy these AI tools from third-party vendors, and then when the legal tussle begin, you want to transfer the risk or the liability to the third party. So it's yours. Just know that from the onset. So design authority is very important. Accountability is very important. And of course, your legal exposure also is also very important to consider when you want to build any AI system. And like I said, the second part of your question, I think Jumoke has answered that, quite well. We're far behind. Yeah, I'll save our time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shabs, for that insightful contribution. There's a lot I know. I think it's just getting interesting, and there's a lot actually. Well, anyways, my notepad is full, and I think it's not full enough. I'm still going to capture more. Yeah, I'm going to capture more. So, thank you so much for that insightful contribution. You mentioned a lot, a lot. I'm not going to pick from Jumi's contribution. I'm going to. You said she has covered some parts, so I
Yeah.
won't go there. Anyways. I'll just focus on what you shared, whereby you mentioned jurisdictions. We understanding jurisdictions, locations, the expectation, from the regulatory bodies, when it comes to, for example, you use Omatech tax and what have you. You need to understand the expectation, the requirements within that space before you just shoot your AI and say, okay, AI, please carry on or execute this. And you mentioned something as well. When it comes to accountability, is actually very, very important for us to understand the implications around, not getting it right. when it comes to accountability. Tribunal will not try AI, is actually going to try the person that is accountable for whatsoever that's actually occurred. And there are some other key things you highlighted: candidate experience, employee experience, exits. I think recently there's an organization that fired a lot of employees with AI that they developed. In fact, the AI even gave them, yes, and even the AI, asked them to submit all their documents and what have you, managing the exit process. And that if they don't complete it, they are not going to get their gratuity, their other things that, they are actually entitled to. AI did that. AI sent them their termination letter, was managing the offboarding or exit process, and it's still asking them if you don't complete it. Imagine AI is threatening people. If you don't complete it, you will not get this and this and this and that. Just imagine that maybe along the process they got it wrong, or more serious finding, serious legal issues if they don't get that right. So
Right.
we have to be very careful, before we say, okay, AI, please execute this. And you mentioned this as well, bias. I think bias is actually going to be one of the key things that will now be discussed more often. Gone are the days where I talk about culture, 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 but now we're going deeply into most of these critical things, that can actually affect organizations. So, like, bias is actually very, very critical, and it's going to be a very big thing. Because if we don't train or retrain most of the process owners within that space, I mean, people that are going to be making decisions are also going to be factoring lots of, data and what have you, for the AIs to execute. Likewise, humans as well, it's actually going to cause a lot of issues. So, thank you for that contribution. And you said, the regulatory side, do not forgive. It remembers and it does not forgive. That's just the truth. Why? Because once it is captured, it can never be unseen. So thank you so much for that contribution. And I will move on to Ola Blaze. Ola Blaze, you've been in rooms where organizations have had the choice, to genuinely reimagine their workforce architecture, or possibly to even define and manage, the things that have been identified. So tell us specifically, what does that deferral decision looks like in the room when it is being made? Justification is given for it. And let me say, what does it look like maybe 12 months later when you are back, into this same organization? Experience consultant to ignite talent match.
All right, thank you for that question. And to all the speakers ahead of me, there's just a lot to unpack from all the insights that they had shared. Yeah, to answer your question in terms of whether organization embrace or defer this, I would highlight that in three parts, saying those that are not open to adoption, those that go headlong into full adoption, and then the partial adoption. I think Olawale mentioned something around the hybrid structure, right? So those that are not open to adoption at all are usually around three factors. Oh, costs. Oh, it will cost us X amount. We don't have it in the budget. It's better we just do it the traditional way. I was looking up data on like the usual customer support and the AI agent regarding support. I noticed, oh, it costs about around $50 to about $1,000, depending on the scale of the company, on how much they'll be able to pay for that level of service. So depending on the scale, some companies will definitely say, "Oh, this is above our budget. This is above what we actually pay the humans. Why would we now want to get something much more expensive?" And then in terms of urgency, they might say, "Oh, they need it like yesterday." So because of that, they just feel, oh, maybe there's complexity in actually integrating this process or having to train people on how to adopt the technology. So that's usually why there's non-adoption. And for those that go full long, oh, it's the trend now. Everything is AI. Oh, we just have to jump on the bus. But then what they now do is jump on the bus and totally overhaul human intervention, which is actually wrong. So with the hybrid structure that Olawale had spoken about, it's supposed to be a collaborative effort. There should be things that AI should manage, or the routine tasks, and then human in turn doing like the second level check to validate it. Abiodun just spoke about, oh, no, they wouldn't sue the company. You would have legal implications for whatever companies that have oversight in that regard. So an example to that would be a company in the food industry. They had to do like a 60% layoff of their support staff, and then brought a AI agents. That was as of last year, right? They reduced their workforce from about 120 to 34, only to come back this year trying to recruit. And then that had impacted the employee experience, the culture, like, oh, you thought we weren't good enough. And even for customers themselves, interactions with this agent saying, oh, it's robotic. We've had interactions with chatbots where, oh, would have maybe sent in our queries, and the next is, do you want to speak to an agent? But then full adoption saying, oh, AI can manage the process 100%. So there should be it should be a collaborative effort. So it shouldn't be a total we don't want AI, right? So on that, and speaking to the example of the company that did like the large round of layoff, see them, it's 1 year after. We don't even have to think through and say, oh, it's 2030. The result is right here in our faces. They came back wanting to reabsorb human customer support agents. So it's two parts. In as much as we're trying to we're trying to integrate the usage of AI, embed AI agents into our operations. We should also try to humanize the process, not that from start to finish. Or some people, even in say recruitment, we have one-way interviews. Reading reviews on like candidate experience, you hear people say, oh, I would rather not. Once I just see, oh, it's me having a one-way interview, I would rather not engage in such process. So for organizations, it should also be a blend. They also should have like a listening here to what the feedback is. That's the audit process that Mola Jimoke has spoken about. Not just, oh, roll out a system and not do a second level check as to what's the adoption, has it improved, what are the complaints, what are the areas of gaps, and what needs to be improved upon. So that would be my insight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olablis, for that insightful contribution and the case study you actually shared, about the organization who thought, oh yeah, we got it right. Hallelujah. And, before you know it, they, ask some to, go and, don't worry, I will do that. And at the end of the day, whew, they burnt their fingers and they had to, try their best to, refill those roles. Automatically, a lot of things have actually been disrupted. The culture, the experience, the system, and what have you. So it's really a lot. And that is why we have to be very, very intentional. And, just like what Olajumoke mentioned, most of these organizations, they think or assume that they have arrived. I mean, technically, they feel they already know most of these things because it is AI now, plug and play. No, it shouldn't be seen as AI should not be seen as an attaché, or let me say an attachment. No, we should try as much possible to look at the internal body. Is it currently old? Should we rebrand it or overhaul it into something new before we start adding fresh, wine, just like what Olajimoke said, fresh ideas, fresh AI, information, intelligence, and what have you, so that it can blend well. So if you should look at the organization, they still embraced a lot of traditional mindsets, and they were trying to adopt AI, intelligence, and what have you, and it's boomeranged. So thank you very much for that insightful information. And like you also mentioned around the audit process, they should have listening ears. They should, understand deeply what is expected, the requirement, during that process, so that they can get it right once and for all. So thank you very much for that insightful contribution, Olajumoke. Imole, are you still there?
Yes, I am. But do you want to pass it over to somebody else and come to me. But I am here. I mean,
Okay, all right. All right, okay. So I'll move to Olawale. Then maybe I'll come back to you later. Okay, so Olawale, I think maybe I'll just to ask maybe one more question around through everybody. So I'll just ask my second question now. So Olawale, back to you again. I hope you're ready for me. I want to hear your
Man, I'm
voice.
here. Sure. I'm here,
Oh,
100%.
okay, let's ride. Let's ride it. Okay, so you manage talent acquisition across multiple, um, currently overseeing Africa, for example, different sectors, different regions. And when you look at the aggregate pipeline of different sectors across geographies, seniority levels, or let me say just hierarchy levels, what does the pattern of what organizations are hiring for right now tells us about, possibly how ready they are actually for agentic workforce models. That's the first one. And what is actually the single most frequently misdiagnosed workforce problem you have actually asked, to solve within the hiring space? Thank you.
Mm. Okay, thank you for that question. Quite thought-provoking. Okay, one of the things that we have talked about, we have maybe consistently spoken about in this discourse today is that some organizations are implementing without designing for what they're implementing, right? That's one. One thing I want to add on top of that is this: organizations are at different levels. Some are a startup, some are at a growth state, some at maturity state. Some are even recovering from loss. Okay, how they adopt agentic workforce model will be different. That's one. That's another thing, right? And if you ask what I see globally that is consistent across most of these organizations is, what I call panic for pedigree. What I mean by that is this, right? Organizations are still hiring for the specialization they were hiring for before agentic AI. Okay. And these roles that we're talking about are roles that AI can today, what I say, AI can do faster, cheaper, and better. Now, I talked about designing a hybrid system earlier. Okay. Now you're asking me the pattern across organizations. Most organizations, they have AI tools, okay, but they are still differing to hiring for classical roles. And I give you an example. Okay, let me give you this example. And that speaks to the singular misdiagnosed problem, that we're talking about. A company reached out, okay, to say, hire for me a senior project manager, for instance. And when you ask them, why do you need a senior project manager? They tell you, we need this person to fix our delivery issues. Okay, there are delivery delays that we're experiencing. Now, as a consultant, when you sit down with them, you will see that the real problem that they have, okay, is the need to actually rebuild the system, okay, like automate the legacy execution system that they have. They have been doing it. You can't use technical skills to solve something that you can automate. All right. And that is one of the things that we need to start thinking about. Yes, people can do it, but in the age of AI that we're talking about right now, talking about hybrid system, there are some things that you just need to automate, okay, and stop having people. Now, I'm not talking about customer facing roles that you need to put human in there. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about deep technical roles that are currently, AI is actually commoditizing these roles right now, right? AI can do them for you faster, they can do them cheaper, and they can do them better. Okay. we need to start redesigning or revisiting our job analysis. Okay, to say, how do I, because if you are still hiring for those roles, then I mean, you are still in that 2015 that we talked about from the beginning. Okay, you need to design right from your job analysis. If we design this thing from our job analysis upward, okay, you will account for the important things that are really, really necessary, okay, in your execution. So, I mean, again, it's like an HR leader asking you to hire an additional recruiter, okay, because you are doing volume recruitment. Whereas there are some things that are, I mean, that you can automate, that we are already automating today. For instance, interview scheduling. AI will do it for you, okay, without you even, I mean, all you need to do is be in the loop. Okay, I did doing something. Okay, right, that's fine. Okay, sourcing. Eightfold will source for you. Okay, we are seeing tools out there, Eurobase, HB, they will do the sourcing for you. Okay, all of these TA middle, man task can be automated today. So we're seeing people, to summarize, we're seeing companies, okay, who are hiring for roles that can be automated. All right. And we need to start reimagining the work or the job and, revisit our job analysis. Really, really important. And then, the misdiagnosed problem is, you're hiring for things that, you can actually execute for. Okay. If you can execute, I mean, you can automate those systems, then what do you do? Automate them, let people oversee the delivery. And that is also another important thing. Let people oversee the delivery. And, I'm just going to jump a little out of the question you asked me and talk about what, because some roles are leaving, for instance, in TA. They're not going to be here tomorrow. Okay. For instance, candidate experience designer. These are new roles that we should be having in place of what we have today as coordinators. Okay, a coordinator will book Zoom meetings, we schedule interview, you know, we can have candidate experience designers today because AI is going to take away those jobs. So we need to be rethinking our job analysis. And that's what I'm talking about. Rethink our job analysis. What roles do not need to be there again? Okay. And what roles do we need to bring on board to deliver, in this age that we are right now? Another thing, another role, and I think somebody mentioned this earlier, is you know, uh, talent, ethicist or compliance lead, because we are in, I mentioned, make mention of what happened to Eightfold Workday. Okay, if they have these people in-house, not just hiring for deep technical roles, okay, they will be able to guide the organization, in the right way they should use AI, which is really important in this age, right? Thank you. Let me just stop there because I have a couple of things. Let me stop there because of time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Olawale. But you mentioned some. Well, if AI can actually source, AI can actually, prompt information online to source for candidates and what have you, then it means those those execution, let me just put it that way, those process execution has actually been replaced by AIs.
Absolutely.
And of course,
Mm-hmm.
people can do that. So
Mm-hmm.
I would like to put it this way. Does that mean that new roles are going to emerge within the TA space? And
Yeah,
if
and
there are actually going to be new roles emerging, what are those possible new roles that will be emerging? And I think this should also cut across all the segments of HR, which I personally, I think I've actually adopted what Olajumoke mentioned about we changing HR to intelligence resource management. So, of course, we'll come to that maybe in other conversation, but within this TA space, I'm really interested in, new roles that might likely emerge. And I don't think many TA specialists or professionals are ready, or maybe they are even positioning themselves, in that caveat. So I'd like to hear from you.
okay, thank you for that. The roles that are emerging right now, okay, didn't exist 3 years ago because the problem they solve didn't exist, right? We are moving from just recruiting to actually, designing. And that is really huge. Okay. Number one, some of these roles. I mean, I mentioned earlier that, sourcing, AI is doing sourcing today. Since they are doing AI is doing sourcing. You know, I think Olablis mentioned about AI doing interviews. People don't like it, but it is there. People companies are using it, okay, which takes away the job that a recruiter does today, right? The third thing is, AI is also scheduling interviews. Okay, these are middlemen work job that recruiters used to do. Okay, and if these jobs are going to be taken away by recruiters, what should we be doing in TA right now? And I said that we are moving just from recruiting to designing. And the first role I would say is candidate experience designer, right? It replaces that function that does the middle, those middle skills job. Okay, their job isn't to book Zoom meetings. Okay, it is to ensure that feels the human candidate feels valued. Okay, I think it was Abiodun that was talking about this. Want to feel valued, want to feel seen in the process that is largely driven by agents, right? We need to design for that because it looks like, how do we design it? And that is the job. Okay, that is the job. We need to feel. And another thing, that we also need, another job that will come to be, will be what I call the internal mobility architect. And that's what I was trying to talk about, that, I'm not, that we do where I work today, right? And, what that is we use agents to scan the entire workforce skills. Okay. It's like a developer who is also a great writer. Okay, you are a developer, but you have the writing skills, and we are using this, agent to scan the entire, workforce skills to fill roles without ever going to the external market, right? And this is one of the things we are doing, in my current organization. People say, well, you guys don't hire us before. It's because we are doing this. Okay. And of course, we implemented a lot of AI tools. We're paying for, thousands of dollars monthly. Okay. It should show in how we do things, all right, within the organization. And this is one of the things we're doing today. And maybe how that it becomes easier for us is because talent acquisition is made together with talent development. Okay. So, it's easier for us to see all of those. And the third position job that I would say, is new will be I mentioned this already, the ethicist and compliant lead. I wrote a book. There's a book I wrote, published in International Journal, where I was talking about, responsible AI used, how critical it is in recruitment, right? And this role is dedicated to auditing algorithms, that we use in hiring, and they ensure that there aren't discrimination against protected groups. We talked about bias earlier. It's because if your AI is trained with data from a specific set of people, it means it will be biased to others. Okay, so these guys look at it and say, okay, how do we ensure that we protect against discrimination? Okay, there are tax, and this require a lot of human nuance. Okay, and it just protects the organization significantly from lawsuits. I think I'm just going to stop at these three because of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawale. You've mentioned candidate experience, designer. You've mentioned the ability architect. It shows that new roles are actually going to emerge, right? And of have to be prepared. We have to be well positioned, obsolete to pass away. People, talent, or employees, and even candidates as well should actually position themselves because now we're going to have a different bucket of candidates, right? we now have a different expectation when it comes to roles. So we have to, it actually goes around, the ecosystem of our talent. So let me go to the last question and as I'm actually asking this last question, we should also give a final remark because I'm trying to, you know, manage this time. So we can just give a final verdict or closing verdict or final remark. But I'll start with Mr. Imole. So, Mr. Imole, I have this question for you. Or Imole,
I don't
shucks.
think he's in here.
When
He's not in here.
It's not on.
Michael,
Yeah,
he's not on. He's not here, Michael.
okay, he's actually in.
Oh,
Oops, we
okay, I
lost
can't see
him.
him.
Yeah, we lost him.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a network.
He's back. He's back. He's back.
Can you actually hear me?
Yeah, we can. We
Yeah, I can
can.
hear
We
you.
can
So
hear you
sorry.
now.
I'm having a bit of, I don't know what happened. My system all of a sudden
It's
is asking
good.
for something. All right.
It's
Yeah.
good. No problem. No problem. That's technology, right? No problem. It's fine. It's fine. So, um, can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. What about Imole? Can Imole hear me?
I don't know why
Oh,
I'm not. I can hear you. I can hear
okay.
you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. I think you're
Yes.
live.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Apologies
So
for that.
this would be no, no, no. So this will be the last question, and of course, you can give your closing verdict. Like. So my question to you is that when an AI system influences or executes a workforce decision that produces a harmful outcome, a discriminatory screening, or maybe a wrongful performance assessment, or a structurally biased allocation, who is institutionally accountable? That's number one. I know you've answered something around this. And then, does any governance framework you have seen in practice actually answer that question? Or do organizations consistently develop the gap only after the failure has occurred? So I wanted to give us your responses from Canada space, so that we can actually have a better understanding within that space. Thank you. And of course, your closing verdict.
Mm,
We can hear you.
This is really interesting. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
I'm so sorry. If we go off again, just move to other people so that we don't waste people's time. Please.
Okay.
All right. So your question was around governance, right? If organization, because again, I missed that. If organizations were ready, that was your
Uh,
question.
so the question is that, for example, you know that the time we introduce to be accountable for that, and does any saying in practice, which of them actually answers that question?
Okay. All right. So governance framework that answers that question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Can hear you very well.
You know what? Apologies. Let's just move to somebody else because he keeps saying page on and responsive, and then he keeps going. Please let's move to some
We
other
can hear
people.
you. Okay.
Okay. It's frozen here. I'm so sorry.
Well, we
Okay,
can
on
hear you.
governance, I'll say most organizations do not have a strong accountability model for AI driven decisions. That's what I'll say. So, of course, most organizations have policies, they have principles, they have the ethics statements. That's the ones that have developed it. But just a few have a clear ownership at this stage, right? And human override, how would I say it? When it comes to human overriding accountability or a traceable audit logic, right? So the answer is no. Most organizations do not have a framework to resolve it. Organization would typically discover the gap after something has gone wrong. For instance, the airline I was talking about is after something had gone wrong, they saw the gap, right? So I think the real shift that I'll say is that you do not need to deploy AI into your organization until you can clearly answer one question, and that one question should be, when it goes wrong, who stands behind the decision? That's what I'm going to say. When it goes wrong, who stands behind the decision? Who is the person that is held responsible? Because organizations still have fiduciary duty to their employees and to their stakeholders, right? And so that is what I would say. It is. Now I say I can hear you can hear me, right?
Yeah, 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 sure. The
Okay.
network is actually
Yes, my final words is so that it doesn't mess up again. I think what I'll say is AI readiness is not just about technology. I think it's about having the discipline. It's about having the discipline. Can you get Michael? Michael is breaking, or is it me?
We can hear you, Imole.
glitching things,
Okay,
but
Yeah, we can hear Mole, but not Michael. I think the network was a bit
okay,
rocky there.
all right. So this is the final things I'll say. Now I see you can hear me. Thank you. I'm so sorry. The final thing I'll say about this is this, that AI readiness is not just about technology. It's not just about having technology. It's about having the discipline, and the structure and what we can call clarity, and to use it responsibly, especially when you want to scale. Right? Organization needs to invest in digital infrastructure, need to invest in education, need to invest in AI research, or even all of those things. But for you to go into all of this, ensure that you have the discipline, the structure, and the clarity to use it responsibly at scale. That is what protects you, right? And our HR professionals need to keep developing competencies around how to architecture all of this. The AI world has come, is here to stay. We have to grow exponentially, but not lose sight of the humanity in HR. And thank you.
closing. There are lots of HR functions, different functions, but if you're completely honest, I'm sure some are structurally dated, despite the way we even try, which is not even sufficient. So, could you name that needs to be torn down and rebuilt from the architecture, not just adjusted? Okay, can you hear me, Olajumoke? Do you get the question?
I mean, I got part of it. I think I know the conversation that we're having about which roles need to be rebuilt or completely taken out. Yes.
Yeah, that's within the HR functions. So, which of them are structurally outdated within the HR functions? And so, of course, which of them needs to be torn down and which of them needs to be rebuilt from the architectural level?
Okay, I think you're gunning for me to lose a few friends today. So I mean, I started it, so I will continue. It's okay, not a problem. Apologies in advance. I will try not to lose too many friends by mentioning, um, should I say, job content as opposed to specific job roles. And the reason why I'll do that is because as much as we're building AI based and technology and all that amazing stuff, it is important to know that, like any teenager, AI needs to be trained. And because AI needs to be trained, you will still require human intervention at different points in time, whether it's for the approval, workflow design, or the compliance bits of it. So with that in mind, yes, dear friends and loved ones, if you are in an administrative role, I don't know why. If if the work is repetitive, so give example, the HR admin officer who ensures that you fill the onboarding forms. uh Not just AI is coming for your job, regular automation is coming for it as well. So automation and autonomy are working against admin work right now. Well, working to improve or elevate admin work, right? So let's start to rethink what skills are required to be able to get those things done. Workflow design, process engineering, and all of those things that we thought were fancy words until they became our reality. But the functions within HR that I think will be most impacted, I'd mentioned workforce planning before. I'd mentioned performance management, learning and development, and the job architecture in itself. Why what I'm saying? Okay, so I'll try to put some logic behind it quickly. For workforce planning, it still assumes that people are the primary source of intelligence and labor. That's no longer true or sufficient. So we need to move away from that and start to think in terms of what human capability we still need in our workplaces, what automation can do, and what autonomy, that's the AI agents, can do. And if we say, oh, there are no agents that can think as in the way that I think, or I bring a lot to the table in terms of experience and context engineering and management, well, there's a little thing called the Nemotron now. It's not Finding Nemo and it's not Voltron. It's the Nemotron, and it's a coalition of AI super organizations who are building agents that can do your job. That's the point. So you might want to look them up. Anyway, what were we saying? Okay, so yeah, agent-based execution, and then externally as well, because we're finding out increasingly that organizations don't need to fully staff. There are some things you can outsource because there are organizations that do that as a service. So you might want to look at your workforce planning again. What do you want to build? What do you want to buy? What do you want to borrow? Right? And what do you want to bury, really? Next will be performance management. And this also requires a serious rethink because many current systems still reward visible effort rather than judgment, the quality of the interventions that you give, your ability to orchestrate AI properly, and then the ability to work effectively inside a mixed human and digital workflow. So we need to rethink how we do performance management. Your 9 box matrix was good enough for 2025. 2026, what are we measuring? How are you using AI? How are you able to manage your workflows, digital workflows, to ensure that you're able to efficiently and optimally use resources within the organization? So I'm not saying eliminate performance management. I said rethink in the way that we measure it. Now, learning and development as well. In the age of hyper personalization, your learning officer who sends emails to say what is your learning gap is not going to work. So we need to figure out how do we ensure that learning is more work led, because again, people are working hybrid but are more stressed. Why? And people that are hyper stressed, you now want to add coursework. So what we will now begin to do with learning and development is we will design learning into the work to ensure that you're able to, as you work, learn and then achieve those things that we need you to achieve. So The real need is not just awareness, it's about building practical capability, both in judgment, problem solving, prompting, verification, very key, because we saw one of those consulting firms that submitted a report that was AI written and then had to refund money and became a choir. It became a problem, right? So you need to be able to verify, and then you need to be able to handle exceptions. Because in cases where your AI is hallucinating, in cases where your AI is biased, in cases where there are just different issues that you need to be able to handle as a human being, and then escalations as well. Now, so when it comes to all of this, HR is not just being asked to redesign jobs or take away some particular roles. We're saying that the entire structure needs an overhaul. And in doing that, we need to now think of which roles are we elevating, what skills are we taking out of the equation entirely, and then what do we now need to build to be able to ensure that we're relevant in the future of work, right? So again, what we're saying is, I'm not saying outrightly take out any role. I'm just saying, what are we buying, what are we building, what are we borrowing, and what are we actually burying? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olajumoke, for that insightful. Um, is it nugget? Yeah, nugget. That's the right word, nugget. I was actually looking for a bigger grammar, vocabulary that I can use, but it's not coming. I don't know why it's not coming. But thank you so much for that nugget. A lot and a lot to take from this conversation. A lot. And we have a lot of participants on LinkedIn. We have a question from Alexander Temitokpe. Yeah, I see you, Oluseyi Taiwo, the Oracle. Yeah, thank you so much for saying hi to us. Thank you very much. Okay, Alexander Temitokpe, his question goes this way. He says, is Africa, particularly Nigeria, ready for the negative impact of AI? So that's actually his question. So that is noted, but I would just quickly like to move forward to Mr. Abiodun and then over to Olablaze. So let me even, they said ladies first, right? Let me start with Olablaze. Olablaze, are you ready for my question?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll ask you this very simple question, and I think it's actually the last of all the questions I'm supposed to ask you. In a workforce where systems own execution, what does human performance mean? And how do you measure the development of something that cannot be automated? So I think that's a very simple question. You'll be able to um, give us detailed insight. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I believe before the age of automation, we had all of the processes and systems to actually measure performance. I think one of the ways to measure performance in that regard would be the quality of outputs, right? What's the resultant outcome of whatever task that was carried out? So weighing that in terms of, oh, was it able to achieve the major aim while the task was completed? I know for the likes of say a report was carried out. Oh, okay. Reports by themselves do not interpret themselves. What are like the deductions we're able to make from it? Uh, Olawale had shared data on like hiring, right? Oh, let's say we're doing a global hiring, or what are like the data? Oh, African talents. What are okay? I would say, for example, I noticed the trend hiring in the Philippines and then Nigeria, and these candidates were actually to take an assessment. Then, after the interview, during our internal evaluation, we noticed the particular trend that, oh, a particular category paid more attention to this assessment from a particular region, while those from our own end they just jumped right at it, right? So all of those deductions are now like that would inform data that would inform quality of output, uh, hiring in future. So just getting data by themselves will not interpret, making deductions from this data, ensuring that the quality of output or the intended purpose for which the the report was conducted is achieved. So that is how I would address that.
Okay. So what's your close verdict?
Okay,
Your
so
closing
in terms of a closing verdict, I would just say, yeah, incorporating artificial intelligence is key. Embracing and much more being being open to adopting and embracing technology. It might be AI, it's AI now, right? In the next 5 years, we don't know what it would be, right? Being able to embrace and also audit effectively, right? Not just jumping at every trend, but when a trend comes, let's reflect on our data and big on data. Or what are the gaps that we currently have? How do we see this new system or addressing these gaps? So that we don't just jump at every trend. I remember maybe for trainings as well, people just jump and then take irrelevant training. So same for organizations as well, not to jump on adoption, but then to audit and ensure that whatever technology they're looking to embrace is meeting their need pattern.
Thank you very much, Ola Blaze. Thank you so much. Your information that is being shared is very, very helpful. You mentioned the, is it the, I'll call it in psychology, we call it is it classical conditioning, whereby you condition two different groups, with maybe different expectation, and at the end of the day, you see that one performs more than the other. Sorry, I'm bringing in psychology, but that is actually a very huge case study that can actually help us understand that there's a place of AI, playing its role, and there's a place of human intelligence also playing, her own role. Over to you, Mr. Biodun, over there in the UK. And my question to you is that you understand deeply around regulatory frameworks for AI. You mentioned a lot around um, jurisdictions and what have you. So, if we are to talk about regulatory frameworks for AI in financial services, from the EU AI Act to FCA expectations around algorithmic decision making, which are actually moving towards requiring audits expectation, accountability for any system that possibly influences material decisions, including maybe workforce decisions as well. So, how do you expect people functions, inside regulated enterprises to build into their workforce architecture today before the regulation actually requires it? And what is actually the cost of waiting until it actually happens? I know Olajumoke mentioned something which you also aligned with, that regulatory aspects will always catch up with innovation. So we have to make sure that we are highly intentional. I would like to hear from you and your closing verdict. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that's going to be pretty much straightforward. I think, I mean, what has to be built now isn't, excuse me, what has to be built now isn't, policy layer. I think it's an operating system, for accountable decision. And that's what I kind of harped on, a bit earlier. I mean, I've been exposed, I manage change projects, and I see how, some of these decisions are being taken. I know we all spoke earlier about, the level of involvement, of HR and all of that. But the key question is, at what point really is HR brought into these conversations? So for us, I think, it's really about, an operating system that has, for accountable, decision making. I mean, if people process can influence hiring outcome, promotion or disciplinary action or whatever it already sits inside, kind of regulatory, logic. I work in the financial services system. So I would say it sits inside that regulatory logic where you have credit risk or what have you, models. So I think it's be about that layer that we need to focus on, the operating system. And that's what many organizations don't focus on. Olawale spoke earlier about those boxes. People see org structures, for instance, as just those boxes, but it goes beyond those boxes. There are management principles that go into it. Operating models is what people really don't look at, in what's it called, the target operating model. People really don't understand how to build target operating models, and it's those target operating models that help, to determine the boxes that you have in structure. So there's a lot of expectations from regulators, but then two signals make that unavoidable. One is the direction set by EU Act, especially as it comes to the UK environment. I know you've heard Brexit, but there's a lot of EU laws that are still being, practiced here. Especially when it comes to employment laws and things around financial regulation and supervision. So both, covering some same expectations, and we've spoken earlier about evidence. Ola Blaze spoke about what's it called, data earlier. One of the way you can evidence anything is through data. So we need a kind of decision inventory, to be able to focus on some of these areas. So it's really not about policy. I think it's about operating system for accountable decisions. I think that's what can help. In terms of my final verdict, our focus has been a lot on the HR space when it comes to AI, but I just sat down to start thinking of some of the changes I've seen, while growing up. And I see how delayed those changes are brought, especially into Africa and Nigeria. For instance, I just remembered while we were speaking now, where I would go into a lift in NMPC, and then I'll see someone sit, in front of the buttons. And then as we go into that lift, someone will say, "Give me 9, give me 11, give me 8, give me this, give me that." And then the man is punching, punching, and punching. I don't know what it is now, but I want to believe that that man doesn't have a job again, today. Same, my experience when I first went to the United States. I was almost late for my flight coming back to Nigeria, and then I realized I had to do a self-service, check-in, carried my bag on my own, in the whatever and all of that. And I came back on one of my local flights. I saw somebody trying to, open what's it called for me to go, and I was shaking my head. I said, at some point, I know you won't have your job again. So it's really not about AI taking people's jobs. About people building capacity to be able to match up, level up. We talk about reskilling. We talk about, even in the HR space, you hear Olawale say, we need to be able to do our job analysis properly. And I believe this stems from being able to build a proper operating model. So you need to be able to know where you fit in per time as things progress. Will things change? Yes, continuously. We will revert back to some of those decisions that we have taken most of the time. As someone who's experiencing transformation and managing change, I'm at the stage where some of the change projects that I'm handling currently, the problem statements start with, "Oh, we had, a restructuring in the last couple of years, and we had to let some people go, but we realized that the workload is kind of much for the people that we have now." But in the meantime, are you part of those people that they are letting go? How ready are you, to focus on the future and what's coming next? So I think we have to continue to build capacity, capabilities, and be ready to risk it.
Thank you
Right.
so much for that profound, insightful, fantabulous, and incredible information. Thank you very much, Charles. I pick a lot, from that as well. It's a lot and a lot and a lot. This is really a loaded conversation, and I'm really glad that this is recorded, live, whereby people can still, refer back to this engagement that we've had today. Um, so let us just answer this person's message on LinkedIn. his question. He says that is Africa, particularly Nigeria, ready for the negative impact of AI? So anyone could actually jump on this question and answer. Then I think after that we can wrap up today's event. Thank you.
Okay, so let me try to have a go at it.
Okay, let me
Before, sorry, Olawale, you were going to say
go
something.
ahead,
Okay.
please. First.
Okay,
No, no, go
I
ahead,
mean,
please. First. Go ahead.
so the first thing is technology is neither good nor bad. That's my perspective of it. It's depends on who's using it and how they use it. And as Ola Blaze had mentioned, data, data, data. If we don't have data, then what are we doing? So when it comes to the effect of technology on the society, I know we've at different levels of the society, in fact, even from organizations to schools to, to whatever setting you might find yourself, social settings, people are already saying, oh, AI makes people socially awkward because everybody's trying to figure out what to say and sound perfect. So instead of thinking is being outsourced. Now, while in some cases that's true,
Mm,
in many cases, um, as with many new products, advice on responsible use is important. So the education when it comes to AI is not necessarily just how to prompt; it's how to use it responsibly. It's the same way, on your alcohol bottle, you say drink responsibly, right? So it is important that we as a people take responsibility for our usage of AI. And also, whatever authorities are responsible for adoption and change management need to speak about the ethical use of these particular tools. And also, I think in some countries there are age restrictions on who can use when and how. And organizations also have their own enterprise AI systems so that their data is not out there in the open. So people are taking different actions to mitigate how the adverseness of the effects of AI within their own context. So globally, we have some AI regulations that are coming out. I can't remember the name, but I know that there's one in Europe, I think, at the moment. But again, in Nigeria, we have NDPR, right? How many people are even aware of NDPR and its usage? So let's start with what we have and then build from there. As mentioned earlier, regulation will always catch up with innovation. But if we think of
Yeah.
technology as the enemy, we will not use it to its fullest potential. However, here's the clause that I think we all need to take note of. Many of us are buying these enterprise AIs and plugging them into our local context. We need to consider building for our local context. And that's where data
absolutely.
integrity, data
Absolutely.
discipline comes into play.
Mm.
That's where mitigating biases come into play. And that's where we're now able to train, design, build, and launch for the African context. So, my dear question person, technology is neither good or bad. It depends on who uses it. And I hope that we're able to, get to a point where we build for Africa, by Africa, and with Africa in mind when we're doing this work. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, for that response. I'm sure Alexander Temitokbe, we've actually, responded to your question, and that's actually a very, very deep, insightful, response to that. Thank you very much, Lajumoke. Thank you very much, Abiodun. Thank you very much, Ola Blaze. Thank you very much, Olawale. Odolami, and of course, Imole Ashobon. One thing I would just like to mention, quickly is that the future of work will not be determined by who has the most talent. It will actually be determined by those who understand the designing pattern or structure when it comes to building best systems for talent to strive and perform. And of course, you can't do that without understanding the technicalities that are involved, without understanding end-to-end process, without understanding process improvement, without understanding, the good and the bad, or let me say the risk involved and the mitigation that should actually be enacted, just like the governance architecture and systems and what have you. So today's conversation, had made one thing very clear to every one of us, that we must move from just managing people, to intentionally designing workforce systems. So I want to really, really appreciate and thank all our speakers today for their time, for their insights. A lot of, nuggets have been penned down here. And of course, we are still going to reshare some of this information, on all our social media platforms. Thank you so much for your contribution to this conversation. And so for everyone that joined us, across the globe, thank you so much for being part of this. And for those that will come later on, to still check, this recording, thank you so much. So my name, once again, is Michael Alasa, and it's actually been a privilege moderating this session. We look forward to another conversation beyond this, and I wish everyone a great day, or let me say evening over here. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful time ahead.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
It's good to meet you
Thank
Bye,
all.
you,
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Yeah.